I never thought I'd have to choose between my financial future and my family. Then again, I never thought my own mother would steal from me either. My name is Olivia Reed, and until 3 months ago, I believed blood was thicker than water. Now, I know better. Blood might be thicker, but it's also messier, especially when family feels entitled to what you've earned. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. This is the story of how I discovered my mother had been secretly using my credit card to fund my younger sister's shopping, addiction, and how the aftermath changed everything I thought I knew about family, loyalty, and self-respect. It started on an ordinary Wednesday morning in September. I was running late for work, gulping down coffee while scrolling through my phone. That's when the notification appeared, a purchase confirmation from Luxe Boutique for $789.99. I frowned, trying to remember when I'd gone shopping there. I hadn't. Opening my banking app, my stomach dropped as if I'd stepped off a cliff. There wasn't just one charge I didn't recognize. There were dozens. A $430 dinner at Costello's, a high-end Italian restaurant downtown. A $1,250 shopping spree at Meridian Mall. A $350 spa treatment at Serenity Day Spa. Over $3,000 in charges I hadn't made, stretching back 2 weeks. My hands trembled as I checked my wallet. My platinum credit card, the one with the highest limit, the one I'd worked so hard to qualify for, was missing. In its place was a sinking feeling of dread and betrayal. I called in sick to work, something I never do. As finance director for a nonprofit organization, I prided myself on reliability. But this couldn't wait. I drove home, my knuckles white against the steering wheel, rehearsing confrontations in my head. By the time I pulled into our shared driveway, I was no longer confused. I was furious. Our family home, a modest 2-story in the suburbs of Portland, had been my refuge after a messy breakup last year. What was supposed to be a temporary 3-month stay while I regrouped had stretched into almost a year. I'd told myself I was helping Mom with bills after Dad passed away. But the truth was, I'd grown comfortable. Too comfortable, apparently. The lush smell of pancakes and coffee hit me as I walked through the front door. I followed it to the kitchen, where I found my mother and my 22-year-old sister, Vanessa, laughing over breakfast. The tableau of domestic bliss might have been heartwarming if not for the shopping bags scattered across the floor. Bags from the very stores that had mysteriously appeared on my credit card statement. "Liv, what are you doing home?" Mom asked, her smile faltering slightly when she saw my expression. At 54, Diana Reed still turned heads, maintaining the beauty queen looks that had won her titles in her youth. Today, however, her perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide the flash of guilt in her eyes. Vanessa, by contrast, showed no such awareness. My younger sister sat at the kitchen island, scrolling through her phone while sipping from a mug that read, "But first, shopping." She wore a designer blouse I'd never seen before, the price tag of which probably equaled my daily salary. I placed my phone on the counter, the banking app still open. "Would either of you like to explain this?" I kept my voice level, professional, the same tone I used when discovering accounting discrepancies at work. Vanessa barely glanced up. "Explain what?" Mom approached, peering at the screen. "Oh, Olivia, don't be dramatic. I was going to tell you." "Tell me what?" I crossed my arms. "That you took my credit card without asking? That you spent over $3,000 of my money?" Vanessa finally looked up, rolling her eyes. "It's not like you ever use your credit. You're always saving. For that boring condo downtown." The dismissive way she said boring condo made my blood boil. That condo represented freedom, independence, my future. I'd been saving for a down payment for 3 years, working overtime, foregoing vacations, while Vanessa had flitted between college majors, never holding a job for more than 2 months. "That's not the point," I said through gritted teeth. "You stole from me." Mom winced at the word stole. Borrowed, Olivia. We borrowed your card for a few things Vanessa needed. You know how hard it's been since your father passed. Some of us don't have the luxury of high-paying jobs. The guilt trip was familiar, but this time it ignited something new in me. Don't you dare, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. Don't you dare use Dad to justify theft. Mom's face hardened. We're family, Olivia. Family helps each other. This isn't help, I countered. Help is something freely given, not taken. Vanessa stood up, flipping her caramel-highlighted hair over her shoulder. God, when did you become such a miser? You make plenty of money. It's not like you're spending it on anything important. I stared at her, really seeing her for the first time in years. My little sister, the baby of the family, always coddled, always excused. The realization was like a slap. She genuinely believed she was entitled to my money. Both of them did. My condo fund is important to me, I said quietly. But that's not even the issue. The issue is respect. You didn't ask. You took. And now you're acting like I'm the unreasonable one for being upset. Mom sighed dramatically, as if I were a child having a tantrum. Olivia, please. We'll pay you back eventually. Vanessa has that internship interview next week and she needed to look presentable. You know first impressions matter in the fashion industry. I looked at the shopping bags again. Designer labels, luxury brands. She needed $150 worth of new clothes for an interview? Vanessa smirked. Quality costs money, Liv. Not all of us want to shop at discount stores our whole lives. The dig hurt more than I cared to admit. I'd grown up wearing hand-me-downs while Vanessa always got new clothes. Even now, I was careful with money, buying classic pieces that lasted rather than chasing trends. Not because I had to anymore, but because frugality was ingrained in me. Apparently, so was being taken advantage of. I opened my banking app again, navigating to the card management section. With a few taps, I canceled my credit card, watching as the screen confirmed the action with a cheery, "Your card has been successfully canceled." Message. Neither of them noticed what I'd done. They were too busy justifying themselves. Think of it as your contribution to family expenses, Mom was saying. You've been living here rent-free after all. That was the final straw. Rent-free? I've paid for groceries, utilities, and home repairs for the past 10 months. I gave you $2,000 when the furnace broke in January. I've been covering Dad's life insurance premiums that you couldn't afford. I bought Vanessa's laptop for school. Mom at least had the grace to look uncomfortable. Vanessa just shrugged. So you've helped us before. What's different now? The difference, I said, picking up my phone, is that I chose to help before. This time, you chose to take, and there will be consequences. Consequences? Vanessa laughed. What are you going to do, ground me? I smiled thinly. No, I've canceled my credit card, the one you took, the one you were probably planning to use, for more shopping this weekend. The transformation was immediate. Vanessa's smug expression melted into shock, then outrage. You what? Mom stepped forward. Olivia, that's completely unnecessary. We had plans. Your plans, I said calmly, are no longer my problem. Vanessa lunged for my phone. Call them back. Call the bank right now and reactivate it. I stepped away from her, tucking my phone into my pocket. No. You selfish bitch. Vanessa's voice rose to a shriek. I needed that card for Saturday. I'm meeting Jenna and Madison at the mall. Then use your own money, I suggested. Oh, wait, you don't have any, because you quit your last job after 2 weeks because you didn't like the uniform. Mom intervened, her voice soothing but with an edge of panic. Olivia, please be reasonable. Vanessa has been under so much stress with her internship applications. She deserves a little treat now and then. A little treat, I repeated incredulously. $3,000 isn't a little treat, Mom. It's theft. It's fraud. Don't be so dramatic, Mom scoffed, It's not like we're strangers, we're family. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Family doesn't steal from family, I countered. Mom's expression hardened. No, family supports each other. Something you seem to have forgotten. Outros. Unfairness of that statement took my breath away. I'd been supporting them emotionally and financially since Dad died. I'd put my own life on hold, delayed my own dreams, to help them adjust. And this was how they repaid me, by taking what wasn't theirs and making me the villain for objecting. I'm going to work, I said, suddenly exhausted. We'll talk about this later when everyone's calmer. There's nothing to talk about, Vanessa snapped. Just fix what you broke. I picked up my purse, feeling the weight of decades of family dynamics pressing down on me. What's broken here isn't the credit card, Vanessa. It's trust. And I'm not sure how to fix that. I left them standing in the kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of their betrayal. As I drove to work, emotions churned inside me. Anger, hurt, confusion, and beneath it all, a creeping suspicion that this wasn't the first time they'd taken advantage of me. Just the first time I'd caught them. At work, I couldn't focus. Numbers, blurred on spreadsheets, and I found myself staring out the window at Portland's perpetually gray sky. Around noon, my phone lit up with notifications. 3 missed calls from Mom, 5 increasingly angry texts from Vanessa. I silenced my phone and tried to lose myself in work. By the time I returned home that evening, I'd hoped they'd had time to reflect, perhaps even feel remorseful. Instead, I walked into a war zone. Vanessa was pacing the living room, her face blotchy from crying or screaming or both. Mom sat on the couch, her expression a mixture of disappointment and calculation. Finally, Vanessa spat when she saw me. Fix this now. I set down my bag, suddenly bone-tired. I told you I've canceled the card, there's nothing to fix. Then get a new one, she demanded. Rush delivery. I need it by Saturday. No, I said simply. I don't trust either of you with my finances anymore. Mom stood up, adopting the mediator, role she'd perfected during my childhood squabbles with Vanessa. Olivia, I understand you're upset, but don't you think you're overreacting? It's just money. Money comes and goes, but family is forever. The platitude ignited something in me. Just money? It's not just money, Mom. It's the hours I worked to earn it. It's the respect you didn't show me by taking it without asking. It's the fact that neither of you seems to understand why this is wrong. Of course we understand, Mom placated, and we're sorry if you feel hurt. If I feel hurt? I interrupted. Not sorry we took your card without permission, not sorry we spent thousands of your dollars, but sorry if you feel hurt? Vanessa threw up her hands. Oh my God, get over yourself. It's not like you're destitute. You make more than both of us combined. That doesn't make my money community property, I argued. My salary isn't a family resource to be tapped whenever you want something you can't afford. Why not? Vanessa challenged. When I graduate and start making real money, I'd share with you. I laughed, a short, bitter sound. Vanessa, you've changed majors 3 times in 4 years. You've quit every job you've ever had. Forgive me if I don't bank on your future generosity. She recoiled as if I'd slapped her. You think you're so much better than me just because you have some boring accounting job and save all your money, like some old maid. Finance director, I corrected automatically. And I save because I have goals, independence, security, a future that doesn't depend on someone else's handouts. Mom stepped between us, ever the peacemaker when Vanessa was about to lose an argument. Girls, please, we're getting nowhere like this. Olivia, what would make this right for you? Should we set up a payment plan? I considered her offer. It was more than I'd expected, but something about it felt hollow. Too little, too late. I want my $3,000 back, I said finally. And I want an actual apology. Not, sorry you feel hurt, but, sorry we betrayed your trust. Mom nodded, relief washing over her face. Of course. We're sorry. Truly. And we'll pay you back, every penny? Vanessa remained silent, arms crossed, face mutinous. And I want my own space, I continued. I'm going to start looking for an apartment this weekend. Mom's relief vanished. But you can't move out now. We need you here. The mortgage is in your name, I finished. And you received a significant life insurance payout when Dad died. I've seen the paperwork, Mom. You're not destitute. You just prefer having my income to supplement yours. A flash of something, guilt, anger, fear, crossed her face. That's not fair, Olivia. You know how difficult things have been. I do know, I agreed. Which is why I've stayed and helped for nearly a year. But this... I gestured to the shopping bag still visible in the corner. This crosses a line I can't ignore. Vanessa finally spoke, her voice sharp with accusation. You're abandoning us just like Dad did. The unfairness of that comparison stole my breath. Dad died, Vanessa. He didn't choose to leave. And I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm establishing boundaries. There's a difference. Mom sank back onto the couch, suddenly looking every one of her 54 years. We said we were sorry. We'll pay you back. What more do you want? What did I want? Respect? Recognition of my autonomy? Acknowledgement that what they'd done was genuinely wrong, not just inconvenient because they got caught. But I wasn't sure they were capable of giving me any of that. I want to be treated like an adult with my own life and priorities, I said finally. Not a resource to be exploited. Vanessa made a disgusted noise and stalked out of the room. Mom watched her go, then turned back to me, her expression hardening. You've always been selfish, Olivia. Even as a child, you never wanted to share your toys. The accusation was so petty, so divorced from the actual issue at hand, that I almost laughed. This isn't about sharing toys, Mom. This is about theft and betrayal. Such dramatic words, she scoffed. You know what? Keep your precious money. We'll manage without your help, just like we always have. The historical revision was breathtaking. Without my help? I'd been their financial safety net since Dad died, but arguing felt pointless. They'd already cast me as the villain in this story. The selfish daughter, the cold sister, the one who valued money over family. I'm going to bed, I said, suddenly exhausted. We can discuss repayment terms tomorrow. As I climbed the stairs to my childhood bedroom, now serving as my temporary adult refuge, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger, yes. Hurt, definitely. But beneath it all, something unexpected. Relief. The confrontation I'd been dreading was over. The cards were on the table. And for the first time in my adult life, I was prioritizing my own needs over the bottomless pit of my family's wants. What I didn't know then was that this wasn't the end of the conflict. It was merely the opening salvo in a war I hadn't realized we'd been fighting my entire life. And things were about to get much, much worse. I woke the next morning to an unusual silence. Typically, our house buzzed with activity. Mom's morning talk shows, Vanessa's endless FaceTime calls, the coffee maker gurgling. Today, nothing. The silence felt deliberate, weaponized. I recognized the tactic from childhood, the cold shoulder, designed to make me cave, to make me the one to apologize even when I'd been wronged. Not this time. I dressed for work, opting for my most professional outfit, a charcoal pencil skirt and burgundy blouse that always made me feel competent and in control. I needed that armor today. Downstairs, the kitchen was empty, but for a note on the counter, my mother's elegant script instantly recognizable. Took Vanessa shopping for interview clothes. Don't worry, using my credit card this time. Mom. The passive-aggressive jab was so predictable I almost smiled. I poured myself coffee from the pot they'd left behind. At least they hadn't been petty enough to empty it, and checked my bank account on my phone. No new unauthorized charges, thankfully. But the damage already done still made my stomach clench. $278.42. That amount represented 2 months of condo savings gone. The thought of my hard-earned money funding Vanessa's frivolous spending made me queasy. I took a screenshot of the transactions, printed them from the wireless printer in the home office, and left them on the kitchen table with my own note. Full repayment plan expected by end of week. Olivia. At work, I buried myself in quarterly financial projections. Numbers were comforting, predictable. Unlike family, around noon my phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. "VIX for ruining my weekend plans. Madison and Jenna already booked the hotel spa PKGs, and now I can't go. Hope or happy?" I didn't respond. 20 minutes later, another text arrived. Mom says, "We can work out a payment plan, but it's going to take months to pay back that much. Unless you want to count all the times I've covered for you with Mom when you were late in high school, or when I let you borrow my prom dress for that work thing last year. Those should count for something, right?" The audacity was breathtaking. I'd borrowed her prom dress, which I'd paid for in the first place, for a charity gala after my original outfit had been ruined in a coffee spill, and she was trying to equate that with stealing thousands of dollars. I typed a response, deleted it, typed again. Finally, I settled on, "This isn't about borrowing clothes, Vanessa. It's about taking my credit card without permission and spending over $3,000. That's theft, legally speaking." Her reply was immediate. "OMG, are not seriously threatening to call the cops on our own sister? WTF is wrong with you?" I hadn't been threatening legal action, but her leap to that conclusion was telling. I put my phone away and tried to refocus on work, but my mind kept circling back to a troubling question. If they were this defensive about the credit card, what else might they be hiding? That evening, I stopped at a real estate office on my way home and picked up apartment listings. The idea of moving out, once a distant goal, now felt urgently necessary. I walked into the house clutching the glossy brochures like a shield. Mom and Vanessa were in the living room, a united front on the sofa. The shopping bags from yesterday had disappeared, but new ones had taken their place. So much for using my credit card this time. Either Mom had spent her own money, or they'd found another source of funds. "We need to talk," Mom said, her voice formal. I sat in the armchair across from them, maintaining physical and emotional distance. "Yes, we do. I assume you've come up with a repayment plan?" Vanessa rolled her eyes, but Mom nodded, all business. "We have. I can pay you $200 a month until it's paid off." I did the math quickly. That would take over 16 months. "It's the best we can do," Mom replied, a defensive edge to her voice. "Unless you expect Vanessa to contribute from her non-existent income." Vanessa shot her a betrayed look, and I realized they'd been arguing about this. Good. Let them fight their own battles for once. "Actually," I said, setting the apartment brochures on the coffee table, "I was thinking we could work out a different arrangement." Mom's eyes narrowed at the brochures. "What kind of arrangement?" "I'll forgive half the debt if you help me move out within the next 2 weeks. I'll still expect the remaining half to be paid back, but over a shorter time frame." The shock on their faces would have been comical if the situation weren't so painful. They truly hadn't expected me to leave, despite my statement yesterday. In their minds, I was bluffing, a bargaining tactic, not a genuine boundary. "You can't. Be serious," Mom said flatly. "I'm completely serious. I've already contacted some landlords. I have viewings scheduled this weekend." Vanessa leaned forward, suddenly engaged. "Wait, so you just leave? What about the mortgage, the utilities? Mom can't afford all that on her own." "Mom received $250,000 in life insurance when Dad died," I said calmly. "Plus, his pension. She has options." Mom flushed, eyes darting to Vanessa, who looked stunned by this information. Interesting. Mom had apparently been playing the poverty card with both of us separately. That money is for emergencies, Mom said stiffly. And for Vanessa's education. My education? Vanessa echoed, confused. But you said I needed to apply for more student loans because there wasn't enough money left from Dad's insurance. The moment of realization between them was palpable. Mom had been lying to both of us about money, making Vanessa believe we were struggling while spending lavishly, and making me believe my financial support was essential to keeping them afloat. Where has the money gone, Mom? I asked quietly. She stood up abruptly. I don't have to justify my financial decisions to my children. This house, this family has expenses you don't understand. Try me, I challenged. I'm a financial director. Understanding expenses is literally my job. This conversation is over, she declared, grabbing her purse. I'm going to Aunt Carol's. When I get back, I expect this nonsense about moving out to be forgotten. She stormed out, leaving Vanessa and me in awkward silence. For once, my sister looked as confused as I felt. Did you know? Vanessa finally asked, her voice smaller than I'd heard it in years. About Dad's money? I nodded. I helped her file the insurance claim. I assumed she'd told you. She always made it seem like we were one missed payment away from losing the house, Vanessa said slowly. That's why I never argued when she said we couldn't afford for me to study abroad, or when she insisted I stay home for college instead of going to FIT in New York. The Fashion Institute of Technology had been Vanessa's dream school. She'd been devastated when Mom convinced her we couldn't afford the out-of-state tuition. I'd assumed it was a joint decision they'd made, based on genuine financial constraints. I'm sorry, I said, meaning it. I didn't know she was telling you that. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. Why are you sorry? This is perfect for you, isn't it? Now you get to be right about everything, as usual. The momentary connection shattered. I sighed. This isn't about being right, Vanessa. It's about honesty. Whatever. She stood up. I need to process this. After she left, I sat alone in the living room, turning over this new information. Mom had been manipulating both of us with different financial stories. The question was, why? I went to the home office, ostensibly to check our family's shared cloud storage for apartment photos I'd taken during my previous search months ago. While there, a folder labeled Household Accounts caught my eye. It was password protected, but I knew Mom's usual password, Vanessa's birthday. Too predictable. Inside were bank statements, credit card bills, and investment reports. I began scanning them, my financial director instincts kicking in. What I found made my blood run cold. Mom had opened 3 new credit cards in the past year, all with substantial balances. She'd taken a second mortgage on the house 6 months ago, and most disturbing of all, there were multiple cash advances and payday loans, the kind with exorbitant interest rates that financial advisors like me warned clients about constantly. But where was the money going? Our lifestyle hadn't changed dramatically. Yes, Vanessa always had new clothes and the latest iPhone, but that didn't account for nearly $170,000 in new debt. Then I spotted a recurring payment to something called Golden Opportunity Investments. I didn't recognize the name, but the amounts were substantial, $5,000 to $10,000 monthly. I copied the name and searched online. Golden Opportunity Investments was not an investment firm. It was a casino in Vancouver, Washington, just across the Columbia River from Portland. My mother, it seemed, had a gambling problem. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. The mysterious shopping trips that yielded few actual purchases. The days she was unreachable, the mounting debt, the desperate need for access to my credit. I sat back, stunned. This was bigger than stolen credit cards or family squabbles. This was addiction, compulsion, disease, and I had no idea how to address it. My phone rang, startling me. Lauren Chen, my best friend and colleague from work. Hey, I answered, trying to sound normal. What's up? Just checking on you, she said. You seemed off today. Everything okay? I hesitated, then decided to trust her with the truth. Lauren had been my rock through Dad's illness and death. She'd understand this too. Not really, I admitted. I just discovered my mom might have a gambling addiction, and she and my sister stole my credit card and spent over $3,000. Lauren's sharp intake of breath was audible. Oh my God, Liv, that's a lot. Do you need a place to stay? My spare room is yours, no questions asked. Her immediate offer of sanctuary made my eyes sting with tears I hadn't allowed myself to shed. I might take you up on that. I'm looking at apartments, but in the meantime, pack a bag, she said firmly. Come over tonight. We'll drink wine and figure this out. After we hung up, I sat with the decision. Staying felt impossible now, with what I knew, but leaving felt like abandonment, especially given Mom's apparent addiction. Vanessa, for all her faults, was also a victim here. I was deliberating when I heard the front door open. Mom was back sooner than expected. I quickly closed the financial documents and cleared the browser history, but not before I'd emailed myself screenshots of the most concerning statements. I met her in the hallway and the look on her face stopped me cold. She wasn't just angry, she was furious in a way I'd rarely seen. Did you cancel my credit cards too? She demanded, voice shaking. What? No, of course not. Then explain why my Visa was just declined at the gas station, she shouted. And my MasterCard too. I shook my head, confused. I don't have access to your accounts, Mom. I couldn't cancel your cards even if I wanted to. Don't lie to me, she hissed. This is your revenge, isn't it? For using your precious card? The accusations were so absurd I almost laughed. Mom, think about this logically. How would I have access to your accounts? You haven't shared your passwords with me. Then, how do you explain this? She thrust her phone at me, showing an email from her bank. Your credit has been frozen due to suspicious activity. Suspicious activity, I repeated slowly. Mom, when was the last time you used your cards at Golden Opportunity? The color drained from her face. How do you know about that? I found the statements, I said quietly. I know about the gambling, the second mortgage, all of it. She staggered back as if I'd struck her, grabbing the wall for support. For a moment, I thought she might deny it, but instead, her face crumpled. You don't understand, she whispered. After your father died, I was so lost. The casino was the only place I felt anything. The excitement, the possibility. It was the only thing that cut through the numbness. My anger deflated, replaced by a crushing sadness. How much have you lost, Mom? She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. I don't know exactly, but I always believed I could win it back. One big win, that's all I needed. That's not how gambling works, I said gently. The house always wins eventually. I know that, she snapped, defensive again. I'm not stupid, Olivia. I never said you were, but addiction doesn't care how smart you are. She flinched at the word addiction. I'm not an addict. I can stop anytime I want. The classic denial. I'd heard it before, in different contexts. When was the last time you tried to stop? She had no answer for that. The bank froze your cards because they detected a pattern consistent with fraud or addiction, I explained. It's an automatic protection measure. So fix it, she demanded. Call them, tell them it's a mistake. I shook my head. I can't do that, Mom. And even if I could, I wouldn't. You need help, not more credit. I should have known you'd be sanctimonious. About this, she said bitterly. Always so perfect, so responsible. You think you're better than us, don't you? The attack hurt, but I recognized it for what it was. Deflection, a desperate attempt to change the subject from her addiction to my supposed moral failings. This isn't about me being better or worse, I said firmly. It's about you having a serious problem that's affecting all of us. One that explains why you felt entitled to take my credit card. Why you've been lying to Vanessa about our finances. Why you've been acting so erratically. Stop psychoanalyzing me, she shouted. I am still your mother. Yes, you are, I agreed, quietly. Which is why I'm not going to pretend this isn't happening. I love you too much for that. She stood there, trembling with emotion. Anger, fear, shame, all battling for dominance. Finally, she sank onto the hallway bench, suddenly looking old and defeated. What am I supposed to do now? She whispered. I sat beside her, keeping a small distance between us. First, we need to understand the full extent of the financial damage. Then we need to get you professional help for the gambling. There are programs, therapists who specialize in this. We can't afford that, she said automatically. Actually, many programs are covered by insurance or offer sliding scale fees, I countered. And the alternative, continuing as you have been, will cost far more in the long run. She didn't respond, staring blankly at the floor. Mom, I said gently, this isn't just about money. It's about honesty, about health, about rebuilding trust in this family. She looked up then, eyes red-rimmed but clearer than before. Vanessa can't know. It would destroy her image of me. I think that ship has already sailed, I said truthfully. After the credit card incident, and now this. We can't keep protecting her from reality. She deserves to know why our family finances are in chaos. She'll never forgive me, Mom whispered. She might surprise you, I offered, though without much conviction. Vanessa had never been good at handling difficult truths. We sat in silence. For a long moment, the weight of decades of family dynamics and new revelations heavy between us. Finally, Mom spoke again, her voice small but resolute. I'll look into programs, but I need time to tell Vanessa myself. I nodded. It was a start. I think that's fair. But Mom, I'm still moving out. I need to establish my own boundaries, especially now. She flinched but didn't argue. Progress of sorts. Where will you go? She asked. Lauren offered her spare room temporarily. I'll stay there while I apartment hunt. Mom nodded slowly. I always liked Lauren. She's a good friend to you. The simple acknowledgement, so normal amid the chaos, almost broke me. This was my mother, flawed, struggling, but still capable of small kindnesses. Still the woman who had nursed me through chickenpox and celebrated my college graduation. Not just an antagonist in my personal drama. I'll help you figure this out, I promised. But I can't do it while living here. I need some distance to think clearly. When will you go? She asked, resignation in her voice. Tonight, I decided. I'll pack a bag with essentials and come back for the rest later. She didn't try to stop me as I went upstairs to pack. I texted Lauren that I was coming, grabbed my work clothes for the next day, my laptop, and toiletries. As I was zipping my overnight bag, Vanessa appeared in my doorway. Where are you going? She demanded, eyeing the bag suspiciously. Lauren's, for a few days. I need some space to figure things out. Her expression darkened. You're running away because of a stupid credit card. Seriously, Olivia, you need to get over yourself. I sighed, too emotionally drained for another confrontation. It's not just about the credit card, Vanessa. There's more going on that you don't understand. Then explain it to me, she challenged. I shook my head. It's not my place. Mom will talk to you when she's ready. Her eyes narrowed. More secrets? This family is so dysfunctional. On that, at least, we could agree. Yeah, it is. That's why I need some distance. Something in my tone must have registered, because her defensive posture softened slightly. Is it bad? Whatever Mom needs to tell me? I met her gaze directly. It's not great, but it explains a lot. She chewed her lip, a childhood habit that emerged when she was genuinely worried. Will you still help, even if you're not living here? The question surprised me. Despite everything, Despite her entitlement and barbs, she still wanted my help, still needed her big sister. "I'll help," I promised. "But on my terms this time, not as someone you can take advantage of." She nodded slowly, accepting the boundary in a way I hadn't expected. "Fair enough." As I carried my bag downstairs, I felt lighter somehow. Not because all was resolved, far from it. The road ahead would be difficult, filled with hard conversations, financial reckonings, and emotional landmines. But for the first time, I was navigating it on my own terms, with clear eyes and firm boundaries. Mom was in the kitchen when I came down, mechanically washing dishes that didn't need washing, a displacement activity, something to keep her hands busy while her mind processed the seismic shifts of the day. "I'll call you tomorrow," I told her. "We can start making a plan then." She nodded without turning. "Olivia," she said, just as I reached the door, "I am sorry about the credit card, about everything." It wasn't a complete acknowledgement, but it was more than I'd expected. "I know, Mom. We'll figure it out." As I drove to Lauren's apartment through the rain-slicked streets of Portland, I felt like I was leaving behind not just a physical space, but a version of myself. The dutiful daughter who prioritized family harmony over personal boundaries, who accepted disrespect to keep the peace. That Olivia was gone, replaced by someone stronger, clearer-eyed, and ultimately kinder to herself and paradoxically to her family. Because sometimes the kindest thing you can do for the people you love is to stop enabling their worst impulses and start demanding their best selves, even when, especially when, it's hard. What I didn't realize then was that my mother's gambling addiction was just the beginning of our family's unraveling. The real test of our bonds, and my newfound boundaries, was yet to come. Lauren's spare bedroom became my sanctuary. For the first week, I maintained a careful distance from my family while still checking in daily. Mom had reluctantly agreed to attend a Gamblers Anonymous meeting, though she insisted it was just to see what it's about. Vanessa oscillated between angry texts accusing me of abandonment and vulnerable late-night calls where she admitted she felt lost in the middle of Mom's chaos. I focused on work, apartment hunting, and rebuilding my savings. The bank had opened a fraud investigation into the credit card charges, but warned the process could take weeks since it involved family members with authorized access to our home, where the card had been stored. I didn't have high hopes for restitution, but filing the claim felt like an important step in establishing boundaries. Then came the Tuesday that changed everything. I was in a budget meeting when my phone vibrated continuously with incoming texts. I ignored it until the meeting ended, then checked to find 11 messages from Vanessa, each more frantic than the last. "Where are Mom's financial documents? Call me ASAP. Seriously, Liv, this isn't funny. Did you take the folder from the office? Olivia. Answer me. She's freaking out saying you stole everything. Somebody came to the house." Men in suits, looking for Mom. They had papers, legal stuff. Mom won't tell me what's going on. "I think we're losing the house." WTF. Mom is saying it's your fault that you reported her. She's throwing all your stuff in garbage bags. Call me. My stomach dropped. I excused myself from the post-meeting discussion and called Vanessa immediately. "What's happening?" I demanded when she answered. "Thank God," she breathed. "Mom has completely lost it, Liv. These men came, process servers, or something. They had papers about the mortgage. Mom started screaming that you'd betrayed her, that you're trying to get her arrested. She's upstairs throwing all your remaining stuff in garbage bags, saying she's going to leave it on the curb if you don't come get it today." I pressed my fingers to my temples, trying to make sense of this. "Did you see what the papers actually said?" "No, she wouldn't let me look at them. But Liv, I think it's serious. They mentioned foreclosure. Foreclosure. The second mortgage." "Of course. I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said, already gathering my things. "Try to keep her from destroying my stuff, but don't get in the middle if she's really out of control. Hurry, Vanessa pleaded. I sent a quick email to my boss explaining a family emergency, then drove to my childhood home with my heart hammering against my ribs. The driveway was empty when I arrived. Mom's car was gone. At least that simplified things. Temporarily. Vanessa met me at the door, her face pale and drawn. She left about 5 minutes ago. Said she was going to fix everything, that we didn't need your help. Fix everything how? I asked, alarmed. Vanessa shrugged helplessly. She wouldn't say, but she took her casino loyalty card. I saw it in her wallet when she was looking for her keys. My blood ran cold. She's going to gamble to try to win back the money. Is that even possible? No, I said flatly. It's the gambler's fallacy. Thinking you can win back your losses if you just play long enough. In reality, the longer you play, the more you lose. I followed Vanessa inside. The house looked like a tornado had hit it. Cabinet doors hung open, drawers upended, papers scattered across the floor. She was looking for any financial documents or cards she could find, Vanessa explained. She kept saying she just needed a little stake money, that she had a system. That was guaranteed to work. Classic addict behavior. I'd done enough research over the past week to recognize the signs. Where are my things? I asked. Upstairs. I stopped her from putting them outside, but Vanessa trailed off, looking uncomfortable. I headed upstairs to find 3 black garbage bags in the hallway outside my room. The door to my bedroom stood open, revealing devastation inside. My remaining clothes had been pulled from hangers and drawers, my books swept from shelves, my desk upended. This wasn't just Mom hastily packing my belongings. This was deliberate destruction. She said you betrayed her, Vanessa said quietly from behind me. That you reported her to the bank, to the mortgage company. I turned to face my sister. I didn't report her to anyone except the credit card company, and that was for the charges you both made, not for her gambling. The mortgage company must have taken action on their own when payments were missed. Vanessa nodded slowly. That makes more sense, but she's convinced you're out to get her. I surveyed the wreckage of my personal space, anger and sadness warring within me. Look around, Vanessa. Who's out to get whom? She had no answer for that. I began sorting through the chaos, separating what was salvageable from what was damaged beyond repair. Several of my framed photographs had been smashed, including my college graduation portrait with Dad. That hurt more than I wanted to admit. As I worked, I filled Vanessa in on what I'd learned about Mom's gambling, the second mortgage, the mounting debts. She listened in stunned silence. Why didn't she tell me? She finally asked. Shame, probably, I said. And maybe she was trying to protect you in her own way. By lying to me? By making me think we were broke when she was blowing money. At casinos? How is that protection? I couldn't argue with her logic. I don't think she was thinking clearly. Addiction changes your priorities, your perception of reality. Vanessa sat heavily on my stripped bed. So what happens now? With the house, I mean? Best case? Mom works with the bank on a repayment plan, maybe restructures the debt. Worst case? Foreclosure. And we'd have to move. It wasn't a question. Yes. She looked around the room that had been mine since childhood, her expression unreadable. I always thought we'd sell this place eventually, after I graduated, got a job, but not like this. I know. Despite everything, my heart ached for her. Vanessa had never known any home but this one. For all her entitlement and materialism, she was still my little sister, facing the collapse of her world. I was about to say something comforting when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Is this Olivia Reed? A man's voice, professional, unfamiliar. Yes, speaking. Ms. Reed, this is Officer Daniels with Portland Police Department. I'm calling because we have a Diana Reed in custody. She listed you as her emergency contact. The floor seemed to drop from beneath me. In custody? What happened? She was detained at Golden Opportunity Casino for disorderly conduct after being asked to leave the premises. She'd been previously banned for aggressive behavior toward staff. When officers arrived, she became combative. Mom. Arrested. The final piece of our family's implosion. Is she hurt? I asked automatically. No injuries, but she appears to be in significant emotional distress. We're holding her until she sobers up, but she'll need someone to pick her up and sign for her personal effects. Sobers up. So she'd been drinking too. Perfect. When can I get her? I asked, resigned. Processing takes a few hours. I'd suggest coming down around 7 p.m. After getting the precinct details, I hung up and looked at Vanessa's expectant face. Mom's been arrested, I said flatly. Disorderly conduct at the casino. I need to pick her up tonight. Vanessa pressed her hands to her mouth, eyes wide with shock. Arrested? Like, jail arrested? Yes, Vanessa, that kind of arrested. I couldn't. Keep the edge from my voice. This can't be happening, she whispered. Mom doesn't get arrested. She's... Mom! The childlike confusion in her voice reminded me that for all her 22 years, Vanessa had been sheltered from life's harsher realities. Mom had always smoothed her path, indulged her whims, protected her from consequences. Now that protection had collapsed, and Vanessa had no coping mechanisms to deal with the fallout, I softened my tone. People make mistakes, Vanessa. Even parents. Especially parents struggling with addiction. So what do we do? I looked at the chaos surrounding us, the physical manifestation of our family's dysfunction. First, I need to pack what's left of my belongings. Then we deal with Mom. One step at a time. Together, we salvaged what we could of my possessions. Most of my clothes were fine once refolded. Some books had broken spines, but many were undamaged. My laptop, thankfully, had been with me at Lauren's. The greatest casualties were sentimental items, photographs, souvenirs, the handmade quilt from my grandmother. As we worked, Vanessa grew quieter, more introspective. Finally, as we sealed, the last box, she spoke. I've been awful to you, haven't I? I've been awful to you, haven't I? The simple acknowledgement caught me off guard. We've all made mistakes, I offered diplomatically. She shook her head. No, I've been spoiled and entitled and mean. I took your stuff without asking. I called you names when you objected. I never even said thank you for all the times you've helped me. I sat beside her on the floor, amid the boxes and bags. Why do you think that is? She considered this, perhaps honestly reflecting on her behavior for the first time. Mom always made it seem normal, like you owed it to me because you were older, more successful. She'd say things like, "That's what sisters do," or "Olivia doesn't." Mind, she has plenty. I guess I believed her because it was easier than thinking about whether it was fair. It was the most insightful thing I'd ever heard her say. Family dynamics are complicated, I acknowledged. We all played our assigned roles for a long time. But now everything's falling apart, she said, voice breaking. Mom's in jail. We might lose the house. You've moved out. Nothing makes sense anymore. I took her hand, the first genuine connection between us in years. Maybe that's not entirely bad. When systems break down, you get to rebuild them differently. Better if you're intentional about it. She looked at me with tear-filled eyes. I don't know how to do any of this. Adult stuff. Real life. Neither. Did I at first? I admitted. But you learn. Everyone does. Will you help me? The vulnerability in her question was palpable. Yes, I said after a moment, but with boundaries this time. Real ones. She nodded solemnly. I'll pay you back for the credit card, I promise. I'll get a job, even if it's just retail or coffee shop work. It was a small thing, perhaps, in the face of all our family's problems, but it represented something significant. Vanessa's first step toward responsibility, toward adulthood. That would be a good start, I agreed. We finished loading my salvaged belongings into my car in silence, each lost in our own thoughts. The sun was setting by the time we finished, casting long shadows across the front yard. I should get going, I said, checking my watch. I need to drop these things at Lauren's before heading to the police station. Vanessa hesitated at the foot of the driveway. Should I come with you to get Mom? I considered this. On one hand, seeing Mom at her lowest point might be traumatic for Vanessa. On the other, sheltering her from reality was how we'd ended up in this mess. It's your choice, I said finally. But it won't be pretty. Mom will be embarrassed, angry, possibly still intoxicated. She might say hurtful things she doesn't mean. Vanessa squared her shoulders. I'm coming. We're still a family even if we're a mess right now. I nodded, respecting her decision. We'll face it together then. As we drove away from the house that might soon no longer be ours, I felt a strange mix of dread and relief. The facade had finally cracked completely, exposing all the dysfunction we'd been ignoring for years. But in that exposure was also possibility, the chance to build something healthier from the ruins. I glanced at Vanessa in the passenger seat, her expression determined despite the fear in her eyes. For the first time, I saw her not as my spoiled little sister, but as a young woman facing her first real crisis, finding her footing in shifting sand. Whatever happens with Mom tonight, I said quietly, we'll handle it. And whatever comes after, the house, the debts, all of it, we'll face that too. She nodded, reaching over to squeeze my hand briefly before returning her gaze to the road ahead. One step at a time, right? One step at a time, I agreed. The police station loomed ahead, its utilitarian architecture stark against the darkening sky. I took a deep breath, preparing for whatever version of our mother we might find. Inside, this was the breaking point we'd been hurtling toward for years, the moment when all pretense fell away and we could no longer ignore the truth of who we were as individuals and as a family. It was terrifying. It was necessary. And somewhere in the wreckage of our old patterns, I hoped, was the foundation for something more honest, more balanced, more real. I parked the car and turned to my sister. Ready? She nodded, reaching for the door handle. As I'll ever be. Together, we walked into the station to collect our mother and begin the long, difficult process of rebuilding what had been broken. Not as it was before, but as it should have been all along. The fluorescent lights of the police station cast everyone in a sickly pallor. Vanessa and I sat side by side on uncomfortable plastic chairs, waiting for the desk sergeant to process our mother's release. The room smelled of industrial cleaner and stale coffee, the backdrop to hushed conversations and occasional bursts of activity as officers came and went. Ms. Reed? An officer approached, clipboard in hand. Your mother's ready to be released. I'll need you to sign these forms. I scanned the paperwork. Standard release forms, property inventory, a court date notification for her arraignment on charges of disorderly conduct, trespassing, and resisting. Arrest. What happens next, legally speaking? I asked as I signed. She'll need to appear in court on the date listed. The charges aren't felonies, but they're not nothing. The judge will likely offer anger management classes, possibly community service. Given that it's her first offense, jail time is unlikely unless she fails to appear. First offense on record, I thought. Who knew how many incidents had been smoothed over by casino staff before this one? Is she okay? Vanessa asked hesitantly. The officer's expression softened slightly. She's calmed down, still upset, but not combative anymore. A door buzzed open and Mom appeared, escorted by another officer. My stomach clenched at the sight of her. Diana Reed, always so put together, so concerned with appearances, looked utterly diminished. Her carefully maintained hair hung limp around her face, her makeup was smeared, and her eyes were red-rimmed and vacant. She clutched her purse to her chest like a shield. When she saw us, her expression cycled rapidly through embarrassment, relief, and then, disturbingly, anger. "You didn't have to bring her," she snapped at me, nodding toward Vanessa. "I wanted to come," Vanessa replied before I could respond. "You're my mother." The simple declaration seemed to pierce Mom's anger. Her shoulders slumped, and for a moment, I thought she might cry. Instead, she straightened her spine, attempting to reclaim some dignity. "Let's just go," she said tersely. We walked to my car in silence, the weight of unsaid words heavy between. I held the door open for Mom to climb into the back seat, but she hesitated. "I'm not a child, Olivia. I can sit in the front." "Vanessa's already in the front," I pointed out. "And frankly, Mom, after the day you've had, the back seat might be safer for everyone." Her eyes flashed, but she complied without further argument. A small victory. The drive home was excruciating. Mom stared out the window, refusing to engage. Vanessa kept shooting worried glances between us, clearly uncertain how to navigate this new family dynamic. I focused on the road, my mind racing with calculations, contingency plans, next steps. When we pulled into the driveway, Mom broke her silence. "I suppose you're both very proud of yourselves, seeing me humiliated like that." "That's not fair," Vanessa protested. "We're trying to help you." Mom laughed, a harsh sound devoid of humor. "Help me? By having me arrested? By turning my own daughter against me?" "No one had you arrested, Mom," I said firmly as I parked. "You did that all on your own when you went back to a casino you were banned from and caused a scene. I was trying to fix our financial problems. Problems you made worse by canceling my access to your credit, by reporting the card stolen." "Stop." My voice was quiet but resolute. "We're not doing this now. We're all exhausted. We need food, showers, and sleep. Tomorrow, when everyone's calmer, we'll talk about next steps." "Next steps," she repeated mockingly. "Always so organized, Olivia. Always so in control." I ignored the jab. "Do you need help getting inside?" "I'm not drunk, if that's what you're asking." "That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking if you need help." She looked away. "I'm fine." Inside, the house still bore the scars of her earlier rampage, drawers left open, papers scattered, a family photo knocked from the wall, its frame cracked. Vanessa quietly began tidying while Mom headed straight for the stairs. "I'm going to bed," she announced. "Don't bother me until morning." After she disappeared upstairs, Vanessa turned to me, eyes wide. "What do we do now?" "Now? We eat something, then get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be challenging." She nodded, heading to the kitchen. I followed, watching as she mechanically assembled sandwiches from the sparse contents of the refrigerator. "You should stay here tonight," she said, not looking up from her. "Boy-da. Your old room is a mess, but you could take mine. I'll sleep on the couch." The offer touched me. "Thanks, but I need to get back to Lauren's. I have work tomorrow morning and all my stuff is there." "Right." She looked disappointed. "Will you come back tomorrow after work?" "I will," I promised. "We need to talk to Mom about a plan forward." "A plan for what exactly? The foreclosure? Her gambling? The arrest?" "All of it," I admitted, "but one thing at a time. First, we need to understand exactly what we're dealing with financially." We ate in companionable silence, both lost in our own thoughts. When I left an hour later, I was surprised by the fierceness of Vanessa's hug goodbye. Perhaps crisis was forging a new connection between us, something stronger than our old patterns of resentment and competition. Back at Lauren's apartment, I found her waiting up despite the late hour. "How bad?" she asked simply. "Bad," I confirmed, collapsing onto her couch. "Mom got arrested at the casino. The house is facing foreclosure, and somehow I've become the family crisis manager. She winced sympathetically. That's a lot. What can I do? I thought about it. Honestly, I need professional advice. Do you still have that contact at the financial counseling center? The one you told me about when your dad was sick? Rebecca? Of course. I'll text you her number. And maybe the name of a good family therapist, I added. We're beyond DIY solutions at this point. She squeezed my hand. You're doing the right thing, Liv. Setting boundaries doesn't mean abandoning people who need help. It just means helping in a way that doesn't destroy you too. Her words echoed in my mind as I fell into an exhausted sleep. Boundaries. Help without self-destruction. The balance seemed impossible, yet essential. Morning came too quickly. I dressed for work, my mind already mapping out what needed to be done. First, financial triage, then addiction resources, family therapy, legal consultation about the arrest, and somewhere in there, my own life. The apartment hunting, the career I couldn't afford to neglect, the semblance of normalcy I desperately needed. At work, I carved out my lunch hour to make calls. First to Rebecca at the Financial Counseling Center, who agreed to meet with us the following day. Then to a family therapist Lauren had recommended, who had an opening the following week. Finally, to a legal aid clinic that specialized in cases involving addiction. By the time I arrived at my childhood home that evening, I had the framework of a plan. What I didn't have was any certainty that Mom would cooperate. I found her in the kitchen, looking marginally better than the previous night. She'd showered, dressed in clean clothes, applied minimal makeup. She was making tea, a ritual that had always calmed her. Vanessa sat at the table, watchful, as if afraid Mom might shatter if she moved too suddenly. Olivia. Mom acknowledged me without turning. Tea? Please. I set my purse on the counter and retrieved the folder of resources I'd prepared. We need to talk. So talk. Her tone was neutral, which was better than hostile. I sat at the table, spreading out the papers. I've made some calls. We have an appointment tomorrow with a financial counselor who specializes in debt management and foreclosure prevention. She's willing to work with us on a sliding scale. Mom's hand trembled slightly as she set a mug of tea in front of me. I don't need charity. It's not charity, it's practical assistance, I countered. Her job is to help people navigate financial crises, which is exactly what we're in. Because you reported me to the bank, she muttered. No, because you took out a second mortgage to fund a gambling addiction, then missed payments, I corrected firmly. I didn't report anything except the unauthorized credit card charges, which, need I remind you, you and Vanessa made without my permission. Vanessa flinched at being included, but didn't contradict me. What's done is done, I continued. Now we need to focus on solutions. Rebecca, the counselor, might be able to help negotiate with the bank, possibly restructure the debt or arrange a payment plan that prevents foreclosure. Mom sat heavily, her defensive posture deflating somewhat. And if she can't? Then we look at other options. Selling the house voluntarily would be better than foreclosure. Or bankruptcy, though that should be a last resort. She closed her eyes briefly. Your father would be so ashamed. Dad would want us to fix this, not wallow in shame, I said gently. And it's not just the house. We need to address the gambling directly. Her eyes flew open. I'm not an addict, she said sharply. Vanessa made a small noise of disagreement but said nothing. Mom, I said carefully, you were arrested at a casino after being banned from the premises. You've emptied your savings, taken out high-interest loans, and put the family home at risk. If that's not addiction, what would you call it? She stared into her tea, silent. I've found a support group specifically for women with gambling issues, I continued, and a therapist who works with families affected by addiction. We have an appointment next Wednesday. We? She echoed. All of us, I clarified. This has affected the entire family. We all need help navigating it. And my court date? She asked quietly. I spoke with a legal aid clinic. They think you'll likely be offered diversion, anger management classes, community service, possibly addiction treatment. If you complete it successfully, the charges could be reduced or dismissed. She absorbed this, hands wrapped tightly around her mug. You've been busy. Someone had to take action, I said simply. And what about you? She asked suddenly. Your grand plans to move out, abandon your family? I refused to rise to the bait. I'm still moving out, Mom. I need my own space. But that doesn't mean I'm abandoning you or Vanessa. It means I'm establishing healthy boundaries while still offering support. Boundaries, she repeated, as if testing an unfamiliar word. That's therapist talk. It's reality talk, I countered. I can help without enabling. I can care without sacrificing my own well-being. That's what boundaries are. Vanessa, who had been silent throughout our exchange, finally spoke. I think Olivia's right, Mom. We need help, professional help, and she's trying to provide it without getting sucked under with us. Mom looked surprised at Vanessa's support of my position. Perhaps she'd expected her youngest, her ally, to take her side unconditionally. Fine, she said finally. I'll go to your appointments. I'll talk to your counselors, but I'm doing it for Vanessa, not for you. It was petty, designed to hurt, but I let it roll off me. Your reasons don't matter to me as long as you participate honestly. And the credit card charges? She asked. Your precious money? That's between me and Vanessa now, I said firmly. She's agreed to pay me back over time once she finds a job. Mom looked at Vanessa, betrayal written across her face. You're getting a job? Since when? Since yesterday, Vanessa replied with unexpected steadiness. I applied at 3 places today. The coffee shop near campus seemed interested. But your studies will benefit from some structure and responsibility, Vanessa finished. I can handle 15 hours a week, Mom. Most of my friends have been working through college all along. The shift in Vanessa was remarkable. 24 hours of facing reality had already begun to transform her from entitled child to emerging adult. I've made a preliminary budget, I continued, sliding a spreadsheet across the table. Based on what I know of the household expenses and your income, there are some gaps where I need more information from you. Mom glanced at it skeptically. You've calculated everything down to the penny, I see. That's how budgets work, I replied evenly. Money in, money out. The numbers need to balance. She pushed it back toward me. I can't think about this now. It's too much. It is a lot, I acknowledged. But ignoring it won't make it go away. The appointment with Rebecca is at 2 p.m. tomorrow. Can you make it or should I reschedule? She looked trapped, cornered by her own choices. I'll be there. Good. I gathered the papers back into the folder. Vanessa, how about you? I have a class until 1:30, but I can meet you there. I nodded, pleased by her commitment. Then it's settled. First step, financial assessment. Then we tackle the rest. You make it sound so simple, Mom said bitterly. Not simple, I corrected. Just necessary. The conversation shifted to practicalities. What documents to bring to the appointment? What questions to prepare? Mom participated minimally, but she didn't actively obstruct. Progress, however small. As I was preparing to leave, Vanessa walked me to the door. Thank you, she said quietly, for not giving up on us. You're my family, I replied simply. I'm not giving up. I'm just changing how I help. I get it now, she said, surprising me. Why you needed to move out, why you canceled the card. It wasn't about punishing us. It was about stopping the damage. Nodded, touched by her insight. Exactly. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is refuse to participate in someone's self-destruction. She hugged me tightly. I'm going to do better, Liv. I promise. I know you will, I said, and meant it. Driving back to Lauren's, I felt a curious mixture of exhaustion and hope. The road ahead would be difficult. Mom's recovery, if she truly committed to it, would be a long process with likely setbacks. The financial mess would take months, possibly years, to fully resolve. And our family dynamics had decades of dysfunction to unlearn. But for the first time since discovering the unauthorized charges on my credit card, the seemingly small betrayal that had exposed so much more, I felt like we had a chance. Not to return to what was before, which I now recognized had never been healthy, but to build something new. Something based on honesty, responsibility, and yes, boundaries. I thought of Dad, of how he'd always taught me that character was revealed, not in easy times, but in challenges. He'd faced his own struggles, a battle with alcohol in his younger years that he'd overcome before Vanessa was born. He'd understood addiction, understood recovery. Perhaps that was why he'd been so adamant about teaching me financial responsibility, about the importance of standing on my own feet. One step at a time, I murmured to myself as I navigated the familiar streets toward Lauren's apartment. Dad's favorite saying when faced with an overwhelming task. My phone pinged with a text from an unknown number. I checked it at a stoplight. This is Rebecca from Financial Counseling. Looking forward to meeting tomorrow. Please bring mortgage statements, credit reports, loan documents if available. Forwarded it to Mom and Vanessa, adding, We're going to get through this, together but differently. Vanessa responded immediately with a simple, Mom didn't reply, but I hadn't expected her to. Not yet. Recovery, financial, emotional, familial, would come in its own time, at its own pace. My job wasn't to force it, but to create the conditions where it was possible. As I pulled into Lauren's driveway, my phone rang. It was the leasing agent, for an apartment I'd viewed the previous weekend. Ms. Reed? Good news. Your application has been approved. The unit is yours if you still want it. We can sign papers tomorrow afternoon. I closed my eyes briefly, a wave of emotion washing over me. My own place, my own space, a physical manifestation of the boundaries I was finally establishing. Yes, I said firmly. I still want it. What time tomorrow? After arranging to meet at 5 p.m. after the financial counseling appointment, I sat in my car for a long moment, letting the significance of the day's events settle around me. Taking control didn't mean controlling others, I realized. It meant taking responsibility for my own choices, my own boundaries, my own life, while still extending compassion to those I loved. It meant being strong enough to help without being weakened by enabling. It meant recognizing that sometimes love looks like saying no. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. The financial assessment would likely reveal even more damage than we anticipated. Mom might resist the process, backslide into denial or blame. Vanessa's newfound maturity would be tested by the harsh realities ahead. But for tonight, in this moment, I allowed myself to feel a flicker of pride. Not because I had all the answers, I definitely didn't, but because I'd found the courage to ask the right questions. To face the truth, however painful. To take the first steps toward healing, for myself and, hopefully, for my family. Sometimes that's all anyone can do, and sometimes it's enough. 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind of appointments, paperwork, and difficult conversations. The financial picture emerged in stark detail during our session with Rebecca. The second mortgage was 3 months delinquent. Credit card debt exceeded $42,000 across 6 cards, and payday loans had accumulated crushing interest. Mom's gambling losses over the past year totaled nearly $80,000, a number that made her physically recoil when Rebecca wrote it on the whiteboard in her office. That can't be right, she'd whispered. But the bank statements didn't lie. Reality had finally pierced her denial, and in its wake came crushing shame. She'd withdrawn after that meeting, spending hours in her bedroom with the curtains drawn. Vanessa and I had taken turns checking on her, making sure she ate, encouraging her to shower. It was like caring for a different person entirely. This hollow-eyed woman bore little resemblance to the vibrant, controlling mother who had dominated our lives. On the legal front, Mom's court appearance had gone as predicted. The judge had offered a diversion program, 6 months of weekly addiction counseling, 50 hours of community service, and anger management classes. If completed successfully, the charges would be reduced to a single misdemeanor that could eventually be expunged. Vanessa had secured a job at the campus coffee shop and was working 20 hours a week between classes. The transformation in her was remarkable. She'd even sold some of her designer clothes and handbags on consignment to start repaying me for the credit card charges. As for me, I'd moved into my new apartment, a modest one-bedroom in a converted factory building downtown. The exposed brick walls and tall windows gave the space character, while the distance from my family home gave me breathing room. I'd established a routine of visiting the house 3 evenings a week, enough to provide support without suffocating myself. Today marked a turning point. Rebecca had presented us with options for addressing the financial crisis, and we needed to make a decision as a family. I'd spent the morning arranging my new apartment, hanging artwork and organizing kitchen cabinets, deliberately keeping my hands busy while my mind processed the choices ahead. At noon, I drove to the family home, a sense of purpose steadying me. Mom answered the door, looking better than she had in days. She'd styled her hair, applied makeup, and wore actual clothes instead of a bathrobe. "You're early," she said, stepping back to let me in. "I wanted to review the options once more before Vanessa gets home," I explained. Mom nodded, leading me to the dining room where she'd laid out the financial documents in neat stacks. Another good sign. She was engaging with the process rather than hiding from it. "I've been thinking," she said as we sat down, "about what Rebecca presented." "And?" I kept my tone neutral, careful not to betray my own leanings. "Option 3 makes the most sense." I raised my eyebrows, genuinely surprised. Option 3 was the most radical solution. Selling the house, using the equity to clear the most pressing debts, and downsizing to a more affordable living situation. It was practical, responsible, and completely at odds with Mom's previous resistance to change. "That's not what I expected you to say," I admitted. She smiled faintly. "I've surprised myself these past few weeks." "What changed?" She traced the edge of a folder with her fingertip, considering. "I visited Dad's grave yesterday, first time since the funeral. I kept avoiding it because I was ashamed of what I'd done to our family, to the life we built together." I remained silent, giving her space to continue. Sitting there, I remembered something he used to say whenever I got too caught up in appearances. "Diana," he'd tell me, "the house doesn't make the home. The people do. I think I lost sight of that after he died." I tried to fill the emptiness with things, with gambling, with controlling you girls. Her honesty stunned me. This was a level of self-awareness I hadn't witnessed from her before. "The house is just a building," she continued. "It holds memories, yes, but we carry those with us. What matters is that we have a chance to start over, to rebuild trust. That's worth more than any house." I swallowed against the tightness in my throat. "Are you sure, Mom? It's a big change." "I'm sure," she said firmly. "I've already researched apartment complexes near Vanessa's campus. There's a 2-bedroom within our revised budget. It's nothing fancy, but it's clean and safe. She could live there with me until she graduates, save on dorm costs." The practicality of her plan impressed me. "You've really thought this through." "I've had a lot of time to think lately," she said wryly. When you're not gambling or shopping, hours stretch rather long. The self-deprecating humor was new too, a sign she was beginning to integrate her mistakes into a more honest self-narrative. What? About your social circle? I asked. Your friends in the neighborhood? Mom's expression tightened. True friends will still be there after we move. As for the rest, the ones who care about appearances, about the right address, maybe it's time I reevaluated those relationships too. The front door opened and Vanessa called out, "I'm home. Did Liv arrive yet?" "In the dining room," Mom replied. Vanessa appeared, dressed in the black polo and khakis of her coffee shop uniform, hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She dropped her backpack and slumped into a chair. 6-hour shift on my feet, she groaned. I now understand why you always complained about shoes, Liv. Retail is brutal. I smiled at her newfound appreciation for work challenges. Welcome to the real world. It sucks, she declared, but without real rancor. So, decision time? What are we thinking? Mom straightened her shoulders. I believe option 3 is our best path forward. Vanessa's eyes widened. Selling the house? For real? For real, Mom confirmed. It makes the most financial sense, and frankly, I think we could all use a fresh start. Vanessa looked to me. What do you think, Liv? I agree, I said simply. The house carries too much debt now to be sustainable. Selling on our terms is better than foreclosure, and it gives us capital to clear the highest interest loans immediately. Vanessa nodded slowly, processing. I'll miss my room, the tree outside my window, the marks on the doorframe where Dad measured our heights every birthday. We can take pictures, Mom suggested. And the height chart, we can carefully remove that section of frame and bring it with us. Would that even be allowed? Vanessa asked. I'll make it allowed, Mom said with a flash of her old determination. Some things are non-negotiable. I smiled at the glimpse of her former spirit, now channeled toward preservation rather than possession. So we're agreed? I confirmed. I'll call Rebecca and tell her to proceed with option 3. Mom nodded. Yes, and Olivia. She reached across the table to take my hand. Thank you for not giving up on me, on us, even when I gave you every reason to. The sincerity in her voice caught me off guard. This wasn't manipulation or performative gratitude. This was genuine acknowledgement. We're family, I said simply. Even when it's complicated. Especially when it's complicated, Vanessa added, with unexpected wisdom. We spent the afternoon making preliminary plans. What to keep, what to sell, how to structure the transition. Mom had already contacted a realtor who specialized in quick sales with maximum return, another proactive step that impressed me. As the day wound down, Mom excused herself for her weekly therapy appointment, leaving Vanessa and me alone in the house. It's really happening, Vanessa said wonderingly, looking around the living room with its familiar furniture and family photos. We're leaving the only home I've ever known. Change is hard, I acknowledged, but sometimes necessary. She nodded, then fixed me with an unusually serious gaze. Can I ask you something? Something I've been wondering since this all started? Of course. When you found out about the credit card, when you canceled it and moved out, did you know it would lead to all of this? Did you see where it was going? I considered the question, carefully. No, I admitted. I didn't plan any of this. I just knew I needed to establish a boundary, to make it clear that what happened wasn't acceptable. The rest unfolded on its own. Like dominoes, she mused. One boundary led to exposing everything else. Systems of dysfunction tend to be interconnected, I agreed. Pull one thread and the whole tapestry can unravel. I was so angry at you, she confessed. I thought you were being selfish and cruel, but you were actually the only one being honest. I reached over to squeeze her hand. We were all doing the best we could with the tools we had, you and Mom included. The difference, Now is that we're getting better tools. She smiled at that. Like my new budgeting app? Who knew I'd ever track my spending? Exactly like that. As I drove back to my apartment that evening, I reflected on the unexpected direction our family crisis had taken. What had begun as a violation of financial boundaries, a stolen credit card, unauthorized charges, had evolved into a complete reorganization of our family system. The resolution wasn't what I'd imagined when I first discovered the theft. I hadn't set out to upend our lives, to push Mom into therapy, to guide Vanessa toward independence, to sell our family home. I'd simply drawn a line, stated clearly, this is not acceptable. That single act of self-respect had catalyzed change, far beyond its initial scope. It reminded me of something my father used to say about avalanches. They often start with a single shifted stone, not with a conscious plan to remake the mountainside. As I unlocked the door to my new apartment, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The road ahead would still have challenges. Mom's recovery would include setbacks. Vanessa's growth would have growing pains. Our family's healing would not follow a straight line. But we had chosen a path forward based on truth rather than illusion. We had looked squarely at our situation and made decisions from clarity rather than fear or denial. That, I believed, was the true resolution. Not the specific financial plan, but the commitment to facing reality together. I kicked off my shoes and went to my window, looking out at the city lights coming on against the darkening sky. In the Hi'ai, reflection of the glass, I could see my own face, tired but steady. I had discovered strengths I hadn't known I possessed, courage I hadn't had to test before. Sometimes betrayal becomes a doorway to transformation. Sometimes it takes a breaking to create space for something new to be built. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your family is to stand firm in your own truth, even when it hurts, even when it changes everything. The price of that. Truth had been high, but the alternative, continuing in comfortable dishonesty, would ultimately have cost us far more. 6 months later, I stood in the doorway of Mom and Vanessa's new apartment, a housewarming gift tucked under my arm. The scent of fresh paint lingered in the air, mingling with the aroma of something delicious cooking in the kitchen. Sunlight streamed through windows unobstructed by the giant oak that had shaded our old house, giving the space a brightness our family home had always lacked. "Don't just stand there," Vanessa called from the kitchen. "Come help me before I burn this paella." I smiled, setting the gift, a handmade quilt I'd commissioned to replace the one Mom had destroyed during her rampage, on the entryway table. The apartment was modest but thoughtfully arranged. Photos that had once been scattered throughout a 4-bedroom house now created a concentrated gallery wall of memories. Furniture chosen for function rather than status filled the living area. It wasn't lavish, but it felt honest in a way our old life never had. "Where's Mom?" I asked, joining Vanessa at the stove. "Community garden. Today's her volunteer day." She gestured with a wooden spoon toward the window, where we could see a small communal garden in the apartment complex's courtyard. "She's the unofficial coordinator now. Turns out she has quite the green thumb when she's not—" She trailed off. "When she's not gambling or shopping to fill a void," I finished gently. "It's okay to say it. Naming things gives us power over them." Vanessa nodded, stirring the paella with newfound confidence. At 23, she'd matured more in 6 months than in the previous 5 years. The coffee shop job had evolved into a barista team lead position. She'd switched her major one final time to business with a focus on hospitality management, and was actually attending all her classes. "How's the new budget working out?" I asked, slicing a baguette for the meal. "Tight, but doable," she replied. My raise helped, and Mom's sticking to her spending limits. Her counselor suggested she delete all shopping apps from her phone and give me her credit card on high-risk days. High-risk days? Anniversary of Dad's death, holidays, days after Sao. Therapy when difficult emotions get stirred up. We've identified the patterns. The The casual way she referenced these protocols, the clear communication, the preventative strategies, impressed me. They were learning a new language of recovery together. And you? How's the coding boot camp treating you? She asked. I smiled. Intense but exciting. The nonprofit approved my transition to their tech team once I complete it. Higher pay, more. Growth potential. Look at us, Vanessa mused. Actually talking about career development instead of shopping sprees. We laughed, the sound easy and genuine in a way it hadn't been for years. The front door opened and Mom entered, cheeks flushed from gardening, a small bunch of fresh herbs in her hand. Olivia, you're early. She embraced me, soil-scented and solid. This version of my mother, grounded, present, working a modest job as an administrative assistant at a local community college, still surprised me sometimes. The dramatic, manipulative woman who had dominated our lives had been replaced by someone more authentic, if less polished. Thought I'd come help with dinner, I explained. She smiled, holding up the herbs. Perfect timing. These will finish the paella beautifully. We moved around the kitchen in a choreographed dance, each finding our role without the power struggles that once defined our interactions. As we worked, Mom updated me on her progress. 9 months clean from gambling, debt, reduced by 40% through careful budgeting and the house sale. Weekly therapy continuing despite insurance limitations. I'm considering training to become a peer counselor, she mentioned casually as we set the table. For other women dealing with gambling addiction. My therapist thinks I'd be good at it. That's wonderful, I said, genuinely pleased. Your experience could really help others. She nodded, arranging napkins with care. That's what I'm learning, that even our worst mistakes can become useful when they help someone else avoid the same pitfalls. We sat down to dinner, the conversation flowing naturally between serious topics and lighter moments. No subject was off limits, finances, emotions, future plans, but none dominated with the toxicity of our past interactions. After the meal, as Vanessa cleared dishes, Mom retrieved a small gift bag and placed it in front of me. What's this? I asked. Open it, she encouraged. Inside was a key on a simple silver keychain engraved with the words, Family Redefined. It's to our apartment, Mom explained. I know you have your own place, and that's exactly as it should be. Your boundaries saved. Us all. But I wanted you to know that you always have a place here, on your terms. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. A key freely given, not taken. An invitation, not an obligation. A recognition of my autonomy while still affirming connection. Thank you, I said simply, unable to articulate the complex emotions the gesture evoked. Later, as I prepared to leave, Vanessa walked me to my car. The evening air was cool, stars beginning to emerge in the darkening sky. Do you ever miss the old house? I asked her. She considered this, leaning against my car door. Sometimes, but not the old us. We were suffocating there, caught in roles that didn't fit anymore. Her insight startled me. When did you get so wise? She laughed. Somewhere between learning to froth milk correctly and reconciling the register at closing. Turns out real life is a pretty good teacher. I hugged her goodbye. This sister who had once been a stranger despite our shared DNA, now becoming a friend through shared healing. Driving back to my apartment, I reflected on our journey. What had begun with a stolen credit card had evolved into something I never could have predicted, a complete dismantling and rebuilding of our family system. The betrayal had been painful, yes. The confrontations that followed, excruciating. But they had been necessary catalysts for change that was long overdue. Like a bone that breaks and then heals stronger at the fracture point, our family had emerged more resilient from its breaking. As I walked into my apartment, my space, chosen and paid for with my own honestly earned money, I felt a sense of completion, Not because our story was over. Recovery is never really finished. But because we had crossed an invisible threshold from crisis into conscious rebuilding. The price of family betrayal had been high, but the reward, authentic connection based on truth rather than manipulation, support rather than enablement, love with healthy boundaries, was proving to be worth every painful penny. I placed the new key on my kitchen counter, a tangible symbol of our transformation. Not a key to the past, but to a future we were creating together, apart but connected, independent but still family, redefined, reclaimed, renewed. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.